Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Boyd, and this is your Monday Brief, where we look at the most important upcoming events of the week. Events which, in Donald Trump's world, can only be characterized as ongoing moments in a tumultuous revolution of common sense. Polls released yesterday show that despite the media poison, which is going 24/7 on what Trump is doing, Americans are completely behind what Trump is doing. Now, that said, this week might go down in history as Tariff, Peace, and Accountability Week. On the trade agenda, 25% tariffs were imposed or will be imposed on steel and aluminum imports by Trump today. Economists who have been rewarded for their incompetence for decades are hysterical, declaring that these tariffs will throw everything completely out of whack and hurt people through higher prices. Really, just take it in. The very people who saluted the 2008 bailouts, which took place on the backs of most of you out there, are the same ones who say that open borders, allowing a slave trade and cheap labor and poisoning of an entire generation of youth, a dark economy dependent on laundering dope money, who outsourced all productive American jobs, are saying that tariffs, a central feature of the American system of economics and prosperity for most of American history, will unfairly punish you out there. Why do they say that? Well, only because they emanate from the evil and grifting billionaires, Trump and Musk. Their real objection, of course, is that Trump and Musk, while billionaires, are not one-worldist oligarchs. They are lovers of the people of this country, and because of that, are viewed as really quite cartoonish, evil traitor angels in the mythical comic book universe the Democrats and their controllers live in. In pursuit of Trump's promise to end wars, the King of Jordan will be in Washington on Tuesday as Trump begins the in-person discussion of settling the Arab-Israeli perpetual war. Vice President Vance, Defense Secretary Hegseth, National Security Advisor Waltz, and others will be at a Paris conference about AI, where they will meet with China's Vice Premier, Macron of France, and Prime Minister Modi of India. That will be followed up on the weekend with the same crew attending the Munich Security Forum, where settlement discussions about the Ukraine war will take place. Tulsi Gabbard will have her cloture vote tonight and then be voted up probably by the full Senate tomorrow. Then RFK Jr. will be teed up for the same process. Kash Patel will also get out of committee this week after the Democrats stalled that vote last week. Finally, the draining of the D.C. swamp continues. Did you ever think that an audit could be a treasonous act? That people applying simple accounting principles, albeit with a great pungency, speed, and rapid and accurate results, are, because of this activity, rogue Jacobins out to destroy the Republic? That your accountant is secretly an evil Superman who throws down his pencils and phone booths and leaps out to wreck everything in his path? That's what the insane Democrats are saying about Elon Musk, Doge, and his band of happy young computer engineering wizards. And it's increasingly clear as the result of these audits that the entire Democratic Party and the rotten oligarchical infrastructure which supports them, the NGOs, activist organizations, and others, are on the government dole, on the take. So let's take a look at these topics in a little more depth. With respect to tariffs, Trump will have imposed them now on steel, aluminum, pharmaceuticals, oil, and gas, essential to be produced here if we are to have a self-sufficient, modern industrial and manufacturing economy which constantly progresses. That's the heart of Trump's program. Ultimately, if we master fusion and advanced nuclear, as he is also proposing, we'll be able to use high-energy, density sources like a fusion torch to break down rocks into essential metals. But that manufacturing platform is just now being born through Donald Trump's policies. If you go to the Promethean Action website and become a member, you'll see a full exposition of this by Brian Lance and Keisha Rogers from last Monday's Strategic Overview. Bob Ingram also gave a terrific class on McKinley on Saturday, which is up on our website and explains why McKinley's economic nationalism and war with the British Empire is such a big deal with Donald Trump and others who have finally resurrected the American system of political economy again. It had been buried by the fascist liberal economists like Milton Friedman, who gave us the current rip-off system in the name, ironically, of freedom. That alien system was invented by the British, and we are now in the midst of our second revolution against it. Now, Trump's plan to relocate the Palestinians out of the destroyed Gaza are still rolling the Middle East and Washington and London. People schooled in the fixed assumptions which have led to perpetual warfare in these regions are screaming that the reckless Trump is creating a second Palestinian Nakba, or land theft and ethnic cleansing. Now, I personally detest the murderous Benjamin Netanyahu and the whole Christian Zionist contingent here who believe that the destruction of Israel by war signals the second coming of Christ and therefore seek that end. But I equally detest the Muslim Brotherhood and its Israeli spawn, the terrorist Hamas. Radical Islam, practiced by the Muslim Brotherhood, the revisionist Zionism, practiced by Netanyahu, and Christian Zionism, all of them are synthetic ideologies created by British secret intelligence to perpetuate British imperial control over the oil and gas and other riches of this region. That oil and gas dynamic is also a hidden part of the present agenda here, as Gaza and Israel both have significant natural gas reserves, which could be used to fund the rebuilding of Gaza, as well as supplying gas to a Europe undergoing rapid deindustrialization because of their suicidal cutoff from cheap Russian gas. But ask yourself, should Hamas, a terrorist organization dedicated to the destruction of Israel, be allowed to continue to rule Gaza? Right now, a large portion of the Palestinian people there support Hamas, which, faced with extinction under the Abraham Accords, Hamas was engaged in yet another terror rampage and sealed the fate of themselves and the Palestinians they effectively use as human shields, as sacrificial lambs. It is true that Netanyahu funded them for years because he thought he could control them and use them against secular nationalist Palestinians, which he did repeatedly. But that's a game which has been played by the British and the United States for decades. The inevitable blowback happened just as it did with respect to the U.S. and British-funded radical Islamists from Afghanistan and other locations who killed 3,000 Americans on September 11, 2001. Trump is proposing that we leave this horrible British history entirely, that Palestinians be resettled in actual livable communities and be given a chance at life for once. That Gaza be held not by ersatz Israel, but by the United States or a similarly situated party and fully developed to its potentials. We'll see how this unfolds this week. Now, the word out there also is that significant negotiations on ending the Ukraine war will take place at the Munich Security Forum, and also probably on the sidelines of the AI Forum in France. Trump says he has spoken to Putin while cagily suggesting he has done so multiple times. Many commentators say that agreement to Russia's very reasonable terms amount to an admission of total defeat for both NATO and the United States. Now, Russia has the same terms virtually since before the war began, and that war has destroyed Ukraine and apparently acceding to the fact that Ukraine and NATO have been defeated, which is reality, somehow threatens our security. Again, reality threatens our security. It was Joe Biden's stubborn loyalty to the British and hatred of Russia which resulted in the present killing field. Again, we'll be following this and tell you what happens. Finally, the Democrats and their controllers continue to be totally freaked out about the simple proposition that Americans should know where the trillions of dollars in their taxes actually go, since Elon Musk's audits are turning up massive fraud, waste, and abuse. USAID was the capper, with all the billions spent for woke nonsense in third world countries, not to mention its role in the security state and regime change wars, including the color revolution against Donald Trump here. Apparently, preserving teachings about gender fluidity in Guatemala, Sesame Street in Iraq, and irrigation for Afghanistan's dope crops is to the Democrats a sacrosanct value to die for. Jon Stewart conducted a very revelatory interview with the former Deputy Secretary of Defense, Catherine Hicks, over the weekend. In it, Hicks continuously laughed about the fact that the Pentagon has never passed an audit in decades, insisting that this was just a Washington reality, that Jon Stewart was somehow not read in and naive for suggesting otherwise. I wrote a piece about the security state aspects of these black budgets for the website, tracing the history of the present structures from the Trilateral Commission in 1975, and you can read that on the website. A corrupt judge in New York ruled last week, bizarrely, that the Secretary of Treasury cannot conduct an audit of the Treasury Department's outlays, a constitutional absurdity, and that will be heard again. Basically the temporary restraining order he granted ex parte without the government's participation at the end of the week. That's how crazy the resistance has gotten. Trump has targeted the Defense Department and the Education Department for Musk's next audits, while also demanding over the weekend that the Secret Service tell him everything they know about the 2 assassination attempts against him. All in all, it should be a very interesting week. On Wednesday, Susan will be here with your midweek update. I'll be back on Saturday. In the meantime, we'll be following up this prospectus with events on our website. Please follow us and come there. I'll see you again on Saturday.
Thanks for watching. Please take a moment and subscribe to our free newsletter at prometheanaction.com.